This one is in a rather precarious position. The Gulfview Square near Port Richey. I get the feeling that this mall is not going to be a mall for too much longer. Demolition has taken Sears and JCPenney already, and apartments have sprouted in JCPenney's place and then some. Additionally, while the mall does have some smaller businesses making home here, this mall isn't exactly in the best physical condition. Come along and you'll see what I mean. Before we begin, I'm going to try something a little different this time around. Usually, I scrounge around for documentation through newspapers.com, and this time, I'm gonna share those sources, albeit briefly. Now bear in mind that if I do this regularly, then I may have to slow down on the uploads. No more weekly videos. Now let's get on with it. Plans for the Gulfview Square go back to 1974, with Eddie DeBartolo proposing a $20 million shopping facility north of Port Richey. However, at the same time, there were plans for another mall known as the Bayonet Point Mall, just 2 miles north. At first, the local planning council were not fond of the mall, saying it would overburden existing roads, and that the region was simply incapable of supporting 2 malls, since Bayonet Point Mall was already approved. While the mall received mixed opinions, with some opposing the mall for fear of traffic burdens, ultimately construction would go forward starting in 1977, and the mall would officially open on March 6, 1980. Crowds in the thousands were anticipated for the grand opening ceremonies, which included the ribbon cutting as well as prize raffles for the first 1,000 shoppers and the first 1,000 women into the mall. Gulfview was also seen by Eddie DeBartolo as a property with unlimited potential for years to come. The only anchors to open with the mall would be Montgomery Ward and Belk Lindsay. Mass Brothers would come in August 1981, and Sears would open its doors at the end of July in 1982. There were plans for Birding's to come into the mall, but that plan fell through and JCPenney would take its intended place in 1990. Though Birding's would end up coming into the mall anyway as they took over Mass Brothers in 1991. Malls back then were known for hosting shows and community events, and Gulfview Square was no exception, hosting auto shows the same month it opened, as well as all manner of events, shows, fairs, and expos. Some of the more notable events that came up was an appearance by street artist Sidewalk Sam, as well as Santa arriving to the mall via parachute. I count 2 places to eat in that food court. 3 if you count the snack bar outside of the food court. Gulfview Square would persist through the 80s, managing to outlive its main competitor, the Bayonet Point Mall, which by that point was owned by the federal government and would close in 1990. Today, none of that mall exists anymore. Meanwhile, Gulfview Square would see Simon Property Group, its owners at the time, renovate the mall. A $9 million cosmetic update that brought forward a new fountain, a new food court, and a new facade. Before all this, Dillard's would buy the Belk store in 1992 and take over, before moving over to Montgomery Ward as they went under financially in 2002. And since the old pad was left abandoned, Simon saw it fit to demolish the building and replace it with a subdivided building for Best Buy and Linens and Things. Beyond that wall used to be Sears. Now, there's just a concrete pad on the other side waiting for redevelopment. And this part of the mall is by far the deadest part. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down in the next few years. While things continued strong, it ultimately would start to sour over the 2000s, with Old Navy departing the mall in 2009 after 9 years of operation. Linens and Things would also close in 2008. Birding's would turn over to Macy's in the mid-2000s, and stores inside were starting to close up. Simon would wind up selling the mall in 2011 to Washington Prime, and Washington Prime at least announced that they would improve signage for the mall as well as try to bring in new stores, while retaining focus on events for the mall. Unfortunately, things would continue to slide as JCPenney closed up shop in August 2014, and Macy's would follow out less than a year later in May 2015. And it only gets worse from there as Namdar Realty Group would purchase the mall from Washington Prime in 2017, and then Sears would shut its doors for the last time in March 2019. By now, the only anchors present would be Best Buy and Dillard's, whom by now is just a clearance center. The Gulfview Square remains today with an uncertain future. Demolition and redevelopment has already come for the anchor buildings JCPenney and Macy's to make way for apartment buildings, and Sears was torn down as well. While the Sears plot remains empty as of the making of this video, it is anticipated that more apartments will go up in its place. This could be beneficial for the mall, and new stores are moving in. However, Namdar seems content to let the mall deteriorate as water-stained ceilings, tarps, and buckets become more commonplace for the mall. Come on guys, get your act together. Now, the maintenance thing isn't meant to be a jab against the tenants here. In fact, I actually had a fairly good time hanging out and spending time as well as money here before going back to family across the Floridian sandbar. But I am getting pretty tired of seeing yet another mall owned by the same suspects falling apart. I don't know what Namdar's plans are, and while I could take a guess and speculate, I'll instead point out that Namdar owns a ton of malls across the eastern seaboard and beyond, and while some malls are decently kept, others are practically falling apart at the seams. Far worse than this one, I might add. Looking at you, Regency Square. I've also heard complaints from others about Namdar malls overcharging on leases, so I'll have to wait and see what's going on here. Well, until next time, Port Richey, Florida, this is Doomie Grunt wishing you, and the Gulf View Square, farewell and good luck in the future.